I might have talked badly about the poor lizards in the past in Immortal Empires, but I am coming around to them being a very strong faction, and I think in land battles their strength was never really at question. Today we're going to join for the final thrilling conclusion of Blankiverde versus General Eisenbart. Blankiverde, we're back to his perspective now, taking the lizards against the Dark Elves, and I've talked in the past about how strong the Dark Elves are. I definitely think land battle-wise they're one of the strongest factions. I'd probably put them in the top 5, and just overall as a faction they have a lot going for them. Lizardmen's, though, I think slowly starting to believe more and more that they are definitely among the better land battle factions. They just have a lot going for them, and right off the bat there's two things here that I quite enjoy, and both of them are Bastiladons. These Feral Bastiladons, I think, what, 650 points, are one of the cheapest terror-causing units in the game. They also have great armor and HP, making them beautiful kind of distraction pieces in many ways. They're great at, obviously, providing cheap terror, like I said. The rest of the build here, we've got some Salamander hunting packs, lots of Skink Skirmishers, nice little block of them, savaging some Dark Riders right now. Got a couple of Feral Cold Ones here. Yeah, Salamanders, and then it's going to be Saurus Spears out on the flanks. Some Skink Cohort already taking a hit-and-run charge from these Scourge Runners as the Feral Bastiladon responds. We've got more Salamanders, like I said, another Saurus here, a couple of Red Crest Skinks, and a Temple Guard in the center. Lore of Beasts Skink up in the sky here will offer him plenty of mobility. Pterodons are quite fast. Also has a rock drop as well. We've got this Saurus Old Blood on foot here with just some support abilities. And then that's pretty much it for the Dark Elves. Malekith, obviously very strong. Probably the first, what was it, the first stream I did in Immortal Empires that was in public release. Absolutely dominated with Malekith. He is quite strong. We've also got some nice cost-effective Dread Spears, some Blackguards in the back for an elite anti-large AP. So Bolt Throwers, Dark Riders, and then the two Scourge Runners, which are currently focusing their shooting at the Feral Bastiladon. Now, the Feral Bastiladon is cheaper individually than these Scourge Runners, so even though it is going to get enraged there and kind of chase them, it will continue to provide a little bit of pressure and cost-effectively soak up some of those shots. I mean, there's not a lot of other units. I mean, the Salamanders would definitely be juicy targets to try and shoot at. But instead, they're going to be shooting that Bastiladon. The Salamanders can kind of follow up here, stay close, maybe provide some additional fire. Let's keep a wide view in as the Lizards make their approach. Looks like the Salamanders light up the Dread Spears in the flank. Malekith, if he has a Gaze of Malice, I think that's a little bit of a misplacement. I definitely would have put it on this big blob of Skink Skirmishers. Could have got a lot of value out of it there. But even still, Malekith's pressuring himself. The missile presence is enough, though, that he gets pressured away. And smartly, General Eisenbart's going to get him back up into the sky. Not just take that damage. And as vulnerable as the Saurus Old Blood is here, as long as he stays close to this missile squad, he should be relatively safe. At the same time, the lack of width from the Dark Elves is kind of coming to haunt them here as they get fully engaged in the front line and don't have enough to account for Skinks shooting these gaps here, pulling the Dread Spears out of position with the Salamander is beautifully done, and then these Clever Girls helping to mop up the wounded Dark Riders there. Excellent work, to be honest. Malekith continuing to take that missile damage is not the best, but he wants to drop his terror route, it looks like, in the front line, which is definitely smart. Try and get rid of some of those Skinks. And looks like a Soul Stealer going down on this big blob of stuff as well, so maybe he's going to unleash a breath attack here? I don't know. I would definitely go for a quick charge on the back of those Skinks, just to try and tear out them and get them off the field. But beautifully done here with these Clever Girls, Feral Cold Ones getting up and around the flank, getting into those Reaper Bolt Throwers. That is a beautiful value trade from the side of the Lizardmen. But you can see the Skink running some distraction here. Skink Priest up in the sky is just running away from Malekith, leading him away from the front lines, which is nice. Will help the Skinks not get terrified away. And yeah, Malekith instead choosing to drop on those Feral Cold Ones, try and bail out Reaper Bolt Thrower if he can. Nice Flock of Doom on those Repeater Crossbows. Feral Cold Ones here get enraged into Spears and Halberds, which is obviously not ideal. And a nice Amber Spear as well into Malekith. Doesn't do too much, but anyway, Lizards continuing to skirmish. Cairns of Cain tried to come in and just got blasted by missiles. No surprises there. Their regeneration ability is conditional in melee, so although it is a 0.2%, which is quite nice, still is tough in many ways. Feral Bastillodon taking some serious damage, but still absolutely tanking it out. You can see the other one did actually get fully killed there by those Scourge Runner chariots, but it also chased them far away from the battlefield, and Dark Elf player has yet to get them back online. No doubt he will. Right now, the Lizardmen are starting to have a little bit of leadership issues, especially as Murderous Prowess kicks off. That is going to significantly buff the leadership and attack of these Dread Spheres. I mean, 3342 for a 450 cost spear unit is pretty insane, actually, in terms of attack and defense. But, yeah, the Terror, of course, the Lizardmen will continue to push through on certain accounts. Blackguards are trying to stay close. One of them getting a little bit out of position here, but now coming back towards the center. Being outnumbered, the Dark Elves definitely just need to kind of stick to their crossbows to a degree and try and stay tight, utilize those missile units, and be able to protect them as well as possible. Scourge Runner still momentarily forgotten over there, but Skink running some danger close missions, trying to continue to bait Malekith. Temple Guard taking relatively little damage at this point, but let's see here. Malekith, a couple of swift strikes to try and get rid of that Feral Bastillodon. Another Gaze of Malice placement. Not going to do much against those salamanders. Definitely it's better to try and use that against infantry. But let's see. Feral Cold Ones get in there, and then immediately route to the Dark Riders. Leadership's not doing too hot. But Blackguard, I mean, besides missile damage, there's not really a lot for the Lizardmen that's directly threatening to them. Saurus Old Blood does count as infantry, but as he gets surrounded by the Blackguard, the ones who are in his rear arc, bypassing his melee defense, have enough weapon strength to actually deal some fairly significant damage to him. Unlike, say, weak Phoenix Guard, Blackguard have enough weapon strength that even after being debuffed by poison, still 26 AP, well, regular damage and a 36 attack. I mean, again, 52 melee defense on the Saurus Old Blood there is fairly hefty, but again, units in the rear and kind of side arc will be bypassing at least a portion of that melee defense. Meanwhile, over here, Scourge Runners do come back. They're going to spend the last of their ammunition shooting at the salamanders there, I believe, then just generally coming in and being chariots. Of course, unlike war wagons, which are absolutely useless as chariots, Scourge Runners are true hybrids. They're probably the best chariot unit in the game right now by far. And I definitely max them anytime you're playing Dark Elves in pretty much any matchup. Except maybe Dwarfs, even arguably then. Maybe you should still do it. But anyway, Malekith and the Chariot are going to work together at this point to try and finish off some of these units. The Skink Priest gets caught out on the ground, and the Chariots are actually fast enough to keep up with him. And his time is definitely numbered. Meanwhile, the Saurus Old Blood eventually does get circle beaten to death by the Blackguard there. Some shooting, no doubt, from the crossbows, also helping to speed his passing. So not looking too great for the Lizard's leadership. The loss of that Saurus Old Blood is going to be fairly significant in terms of, yeah, leading these Skink units, especially to rout. Scourge Runners there, mopping up the Salamanders, not wanting them to utilize what's left of their ammunition, but we do still have a Skink Skirmisher also way out in the boonies there, so we're going to fast forward through this kind of late skirmish phase, as it does go on for some time. The Saurus Old Blood's going to get finished by Malekith, but not before Malekith takes a few volleys from those Salamanders, who he promptly finishes with a charge and Soul Stealer. All this time, the healthy Saurus and Temple Guards are starting to regroup with what skinks they can, form a nice little pocket to try and defend in this late game against the foul Dragon Lord. These Blackguard do get caught fairly far away from support and eventually just dragged down by mass skink shooting. Chariots arrive too late to really help the situation before the Blackguards. Yeah, they're very likely done for. I doubt they'd be able to survive that. But the Chariots do manage to mop up some more of the Skink Skirmishers. Again, same thing over here. And what it leaves is these Saurus and Temple Guard to try and defend in the late game. They're going to go full column formation, try and increase ranks. That way, if the Scourge Runners charge them from the front, they won't be able to get through. And so probably one of the best uses of column formation I've ever seen. But let's see. It also means if the columns are side by side, there's a reasonable amount of just overall volume to try and catch Malekith as he comes down onto the ground. Chariots eventually do get fairly well caught up in these Saurus infantry, and we'll check the mass values after this, but Saurus and Temple Guard generally have very good mass, and animations allow them to lock down these chariots to a large degree. You can see kind of how this one's struggling to accelerate. Nice Soul Stealer, though, does hit quite a few of these units, and of course Malekith himself, lots of HP still. The healing from the Soul Stealers, not quite enough to heal cap him yet, but I think if you can get one more, forget how many casts you get with Malekith. Definitely going to be quite impactful, but let's see how things shake out as we continue to go along. Right now, the leadership of Lizardmen is holding. The balance of power is not looking great, but if you actually look at the leadership of these Saurus and Temple Guard, mostly doing fine. Malekith is going to continue to cycle charge here, and even after the Scourge Runner Chariots and Dread Spears route, he is going to continue to do so, which I'm not sure exactly which rule set they're using. In certain rule sets, this might be considered a rule break. But, of course, if Malekith just dies at the end, it doesn't actually matter, right? We'll continue on. Malekith is going to try and regroup his Dread Spears, whatnot, if he can, but the leadership's just too low at this point. One of them does actually regroup momentarily there, and then quickly shatters as soon as that stand your ground wears off. So, there you go. Malekith's going to do his best to cycle charge, like I said, and does succeed in routing the Temple Guard. Still wavering. Maybe on the next go-around. But, yeah, Malekith himself routes. As soon as he lands there, the weapon strength of the Saurus is just too much. He's getting hit way too hard. And the Lizard Infantry ends up carrying there at the end. Yeah, Lizard Infantry, the Saurus and Temple Guard, if used correctly, I mean, against the appropriate targets, can definitely be fairly hefty. And again, we'll look at the mass stat in just a minute. But overall, a great series between these two. A lot of really nice back-and-forth games. This one certainly came down to the wire there, and Wizards managed to pull out the win against a Dark Elf build. Maybe have a couple of criticisms with it, just the overall lack of width. Also, the Karens of Cain. I mean, Dark Riders with shields are more or less fulfill the same role, much better, in my opinion. Likewise, you definitely want to max Scourge Runner Chariots. Probably, again, have to double-check the rule set, but I believe it's legal to, like, cut one of these Blackguard, take a third Scourge Runner Chariot, and then, again, go with some melee Dark Riders to help support Malekith's mobility. And that also allows you, especially with the shields, to be able to pressure these Skink Skirmishers, all of which super cost-effective. I mean, these guys are only 400 points. All of them more than paying for themselves significantly. Clever Girls also get in the back line, getting some great value, going after that Bolt Thrower there. Skink Cohorts, generally very nice. The Stildons don't get a lot of value back. One of them gets literally none, but they absorbed a lot of damage. Certainly the Scourge Runner Chariots, who on face value end up paying for themselves, but tactically, you know, they were needed throughout the course of that battle, and instead were kind of chased off, and then that resulted in them being forgotten about, which definitely happens. I mean, some people are going to criticize in the comments. Those people are not playing in the tournaments. That should tell you all you need to know. I guess that kind of includes me too, though, because I'm not playing. Anyway. Yeah, these Saurus and Temple Guard, though, along with Salamanders getting significant value. You saw just throughout the game shooting at good targets. And that's sort of the Basildon effect, right? Like, your mind, you think, like, oh, I gotta get rid of that big monster, get rid of the terror and everything, but in all actuality, the Salamanders are much more threatening. They're also more expensive, actually, so kind of interesting to think about that. Lizardmen, just cheap monsters, very nice to have. The Dark Elf side, obviously, some of the Black Art, very cost-effective. Malekith also carries quite a bit of value, as you would expect. But then these light units, I mean, repeater crossbows, one of them pays for themselves, one of them does not. The Dread Spears are just kind of here. They're all right, do more or less what you need to. But definitely came down to the wire there. I think for General Eisenbar, just a few changes on some of those Gaze of Malices, a little bit of differences there, and maybe, you know, getting rid of some of those missile units, or at least taking away some of their models. It's hard to say, but it's certainly very close at the end of the day. Or maybe you just put all those Gaze and Malices on the Saurus. Hard to say, really. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and quickly just look at Saurus Mass, just for my own curiosity's sake. If we go ahead and take a look here at Saurus, and I actually found out recently that the mass values from a dev, believe it or not, I believe the mass values are actually incorrect in a lot of cases, so you don't always want to take this as gospel, but just for an interesting comparison's sake. Okay, so 190 for Saurus. Spears, right? Temple Guard are going to be 210. And then if we go and look at, like, some other heavy mass infantry, like Orcs, they have very good mass. Yeah, like Orc Biggins are 210. Black Orcs are 190, right? And I believe Dwarf infantry also tends to have heavy mass, but it's more than just that, right? Also, their animations, kind of the unit model size, has something to do with that as well. But like Iron Breakers, if we look here, 250, right? So they're up in that top tier of mass alongside some of these other very heavy infantry units. And especially against lighter chariots like the Scourge Runners, if we go ahead and take a look at the Dark Elf chariots here. Scourge Runners, I mean, still quite a bit of mass, but it's, yeah, if we look, less than what you would expect for a heavier chariot, obviously. And it's low enough that, I mean, they can operate successfully against Saurus in many situations, but if they get stopped and they're in a big blob, as we saw there, they can very much struggle to accelerate out of it. So definitely something to keep in mind. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. See you next time.